Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video, we are looking at Sandisk. It is time for another update. And in the previous update, I have shared with you this exact trade setup. I have shared with you before we had actually bottomed within this wave 4, this exact area of support extending down to $1,295. From these levels, we were expecting with high probability to form one additional high within the wave 5. In all honesty, this wave 4 correction made it seem like it wanted to fail. It made it seem like it was going to go through the area of support, and it did get a few dips below it, in a couple of days actually. But it did ultimately hold, nothing sustained, and from these levels, we are looking at what is like, from bottom to top, like a 45% increase. Quite substantial if you ask me, quite promising. Especially considering this took like, what? A couple of weeks to complete this entire structure, to complete this entire movement to the upside. This is already done. This is not why we are here today. No, we are looking for the next opportunity in the case of this chart. And there are actually a few different ways this structure could still be extending to higher prices, but I will share with you a main area of support for direct continuation to higher prices within this white structure that actually covers even the other scenarios, because the levels of support fully overlap with those other interpretations, areas of support. Now, a few ideas of how this could be unfolding. I could see this wave 5 still theoretically increase directly. I could see something like a 1, 2, a wave 3, a wave 4, and a wave 5 that would imply the wave 5 had never formed its entire 5-wave pattern. It was expected to build a 5-wave pattern. This is, however, not necessary. Even if it does manage to build such a structure, I wouldn't expect too large of a push within the wave 5 of this wave 5, possibly to new all-time highs, actually ideally and more likely than not, but it is not necessary. I am perfectly able to track this wave 5 as actually complete. I do not need those additional highs. But even then, I could be looking at a different type of extension. I could be looking at this structure to build internally a 1-2 setup. And this is where it actually gets a lot more interesting, because for this interpretation, I would have the same levels of support as if I were to track the larger wave 4 area of support I would have in the scenario where the wave 5 had topped, the wave 3 had topped, and I would be looking for the large degree wave 4 correction, in which case I would be watching these levels between $1,600 down to $1,355. From this area of support, we can expect continuation to higher prices, yes, to new all-time highs, within the idea of an impulse. The unfortunate part is that within this structure, we do not have the same clarity as we previously had within this white wave 4. It could be, really, that this wave 1 hadn't topped there, that if we go into a smaller time frame degree, even if I can quite clearly track this as a 5-wave pattern, I could be looking at this to have been possibly the wave 1. I would have here a wave 2 correction, this would be my wave 3, my wave 4, and a wave 5. And the issue with this is that the area of support I would need to consider in such a scenario would be slightly lower, might even make more sense to track it like this to have down to $1,280, which is also perfectly in line with the previous wave 4 bottom, and I actually prefer this interpretation. So this is a slight change to the exact count we have been tracking from the previous video, but functionally, nothing has really changed. It's more of a hindsight clarity that we can notice that we can have now that we have a more substantial top within this structure. And realistically, there are multiple interpretations at any single point in time for any single chart. If it were easy, everyone would have perfect clarity, the perfect roadmap, and honestly, if it were that easy, the strategy wouldn't even work. Now, the area of support I would need to consider, as I was saying, for an extension of this wave 5 would be fully within this white area of support. We have already reached the wide levels of support, so there is no real reason to focus too much on this interpretation. We can sit back, comfortable with the fact that we do not know and that we do not need to know which of these interpretations is going to play out, as long as we focus on the white scenario, because it allows a deeper retracement and it still provides decent clarity. Now, the risk part, because we actually have some risks within this structure that we haven't had within the previous wave 4 correction. Previously, we had quite a lot of clarity that we were expecting at least one more high within this white interpretation. And actually, not only within this white interpretation, but also within a possible pattern of the yellow interpretation, an extension of this wave 5 in yellow, which I have settled with tracking as a potential 5-wave pattern, something like that, doesn't really matter exactly. But it doesn't need to be. This could really be a larger ending diagonal within the yellow interpretation, which would allow a significantly larger area of support for a correction within the wave 4. And the issue now is that the wave 3 could potentially be complete. This would have been extremely unlikely in the previous update when we didn't have this last high, right? Even within this yellow interpretation, this yellow wave 3, I would have expected to build an A, B, C structure where within the wave C, I needed 5 waves. I didn't have these 5 waves, so I needed that one additional high also within this yellow interpretation. This is now in. I do not need any further highs within this wave 3 in yellow, so realistically we could start looking for the larger wave 4 correction in the yellow scenario, which has a significantly deeper area of support we would need to consider. This is the risk part that is inherent with getting towards the later stages of an uptrend. We are looking at support between $1,400 down to $884, and since we have this overlap between these two scenarios, half of the white area of support is actually within the yellow area of support, I have to consider that I could be placing my stop loss below the 50% retracement here in white, the same way I would have within the internal wave 4 we have previously tracked. And it could get stopped while still managing to offer us a bounce through the grace of this yellow wave 4. This might make it more interesting, maybe even necessary, to wait for a bounce before looking for an entry in the case of this correction. But I would ultimately still expect to extend to new all-time highs within either of these scenarios. Now, we do have actually one slight edge here, and that is because these structures are at different scales. The wave 4 in yellow is at a significantly larger degree. For example, compare how large this wave 2 in yellow has been. It did take a couple of weeks to complete, whereas this wave 2 in white would have taken, like, what is it? A couple of days, right? Something like that to complete this correction. I would expect a significantly larger wave 4 correction in the yellow interpretation compared to the white interpretation. We do also have a bit of an overlap there because, for example, given how strong this uptrend has been, this internal white wave 4 correction has taken itself a week. So I could realistically see this larger wave 4 correction in white take a couple of weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, since it is within a large degree. Then the yellow wave 4 correction could possibly start ranging from these 3-4 weeks into a few months before having a more substantial bottom before starting the next wave to the upside. And all of this is unfortunate because it does make our life more difficult, but this is the spot we are in within this overall structure within the market. To be clear, at this point, nobody knows which path will be taken. Without the recent sell-off, the recent geopolitical tensions, it might have been the case that this white scenario would have had no challenger. But at this point, we do not know what will happen, and I'm not here trying to predict. So as a summary, previously we did have very good clarity, but this is not the case today. We have two different scenarios, quite different, that expect this correction. Within one of them, we could see a significantly smaller one than within the other, but this is not something we can challenge. This is not something that is within our control, but what is within our control is how we handle this situation. So I actually go into the smaller time frame where I do want to highlight a few things. Firstly, keep in mind that this is a fragile structure and distortions would be possible. We will not get a perfect reading of how exactly this would end up developing, but what I am seeing based on the available data is that we would have a potential wave A down, we could have here a B wave up, and a C wave that could be quite close to completion. Within this wave C, I would ideally be looking at an impulse where I could have the first 3 waves down, I could have the wave 4 up, and the wave 5 could form a more substantial bottom and have the correction done with. This is within such a small time frame that the wave 5 to the downside might actually happen off hours. And I do not really focus, I do not generally care about the trading outside of the regular trading hours. But this is within such a small time frame that it can be impacted by what is happening in those moments. But if this is indeed an ABC pattern, I couldn't consider this to be the bottom of this wave 4 in white. It would have been simply too short. Within this wave 4 correction in white, I would generally expect a larger correction than what I have had within this wave 4 in white, which, as we already stated, took about a week. This is not enough for this white wave 4. It doesn't mean that it cannot extend directly higher, and there are actually a couple of paths that I did present. As I was saying, this could be a 5-wave pattern that would still be information that would still need this additional high within the wave 5 before having a more substantial top in and starting the larger wave 4 correction. It could be that this was not the wave 5, but instead an internal wave 1 of this wave 5, and I would need to then consider that my wave 2 correction would be currently ongoing. That is perfectly acceptable. It could form a more substantial bottom even within, let's say, one more low before extending actually potentially quite aggressively within a wave 3 and then a wave 4 and then a wave 5 to complete this as a larger wave 5 in white. Not a problem within any of these interpretations, but it is not actually possible to know how this will play out, and we have to give it time. And for now, we will actually stop here. I will not even focus on an internal area of resistance for this movement to the downside. And these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.